a mode of experimentation without judgment of the outcomes, we are able to be bold and to look stupid and to welcome the world's feedback, good or bad, as just data that further informs our intuition. I envision stepping away from the need to control an idea and force it down a path to success. Instead, we can get comfortable with a continual game of throwing balls out at the world and giggling when an idea blows up in our faces, or noting when an experiment seems to stick. This opens the door to watershed moments of discovery, from dang, evidently that is not the way to pitch this idea, to wow, who knew there was a market for this quirky thing that's been fermenting in my head? In addition, next section, a paved path with experiments. I said that backwards. A path paved with experiments. In the pain cave, you grow stronger by facing the truth unarmed. You move forward by taking action on your raw intuition whenever it speaks. You've dismissed it for so long, you barely trust its voice. To make progress toward the other end of the pain cave, you must hear your intuition and take action on it in real life. Every step on the path through the pain cave is paved by an experiment that you must conduct. The only way to fail is to remain so safe and protected that you end up frozen in place. Each time you permit yourself to experiment with your intuition, you are fed by the intrinsic rewards the effort returns. Some attempts may stick, some will fail, but every expression of your intuition in real life begins to rewrite your epitaph. Iterative cycles of experiments help you refine and better trust intuitive ideas that have lain dormant in your mind. Experimentation without judgment of the outcomes helps you prune your raw ideas down to a more focused set of goals to which you can commit in more practical terms. The mental shift in adopting a mode of experimentation is that you step forth in a bold direction while you still have the option to back up and do over. We mute our intuition when fears of binary and absolute choices overshadow our desires for better things. We see a leap over an abyss as too risky when so many trains in our lives have already left the station. By adopting a mode of experimentation without judgment of the outcomes, we are able to be bold and to look stupid and to welcome the world's feedback, good or bad, as just data that further informs our intuition. I envision stepping away from the need to control an idea and force it down a path to success. Instead, we can get comfortable with a continual game of throwing balls out at the world and giggling when an idea blows up in our faces, or noting when an experiment seems to stick. This opens the door to watershed moments of discovery, from dang, evidently that is not the way to pitch this idea, to wow, who knew there was a market for this quirky thing that's been fermenting in my head? In addition, I'm giving myself, do you see, this is what it's about. This is why I'm doing this passion project, is I'm getting chills because I know there are people out there with this stuff in them. And this is how you get the stuff out. In addition to experimenting with big life goals as part of my Kindedge work on myself, I spent years in a mode of experimentation with every single aspect of my life. And I call this Kindedge 360. I experimented with the arc in my day, from when I wake up to what I eat, to lighting, to how I stack work tasks, be that with small staccato work sessions to big time block deep dive sessions. In every area of my life, I gathered input from experts and then played and reflected with no judgment. And you can read about Infinite Self-Kaizen on kindedge.com. Infinite Self-Kaizen is part of that process of testing, trialing, no judgment, keep what works, throw out what doesn't. I identified cases wherein my work product increased not based on more time investment, but by compiling the perfect formula to get my brain's neurotransmitters in a self-driven flow. I identified the order of operations for my day that results in the whole outcome being greater than the sum of its parts. I identified when I'm a creative powerhouse and when I'm an operational pencil pusher. And I now tap into these differing modes at the right times for me. And as an aside, I've talked about this before on kindedge.com, but I literally have identified different versions of myself. There's a creative, productive, open door version of myself, and I give that the right place and the right time. And then I literally create task lists for the kind of like rule follower. And when I get into like the late afternoon, like just tell me what to do, I have created a rote list of things to do that need to get done. And that's the perfect time because the earlier version of me didn't want to handle those things. So I just quickly write it down and make those lists. And then I aggregate and bulk all of these into my little, just tell me what to do, click this, fill that out, And I do this and I just aggregate these different versions of me into the deep dive, heavy dig, you can hear my writing. I'm very like meticulous about my writing. So that's it's a different mode from let's get this software set up and let's do this filing for taxes and that kind of thing. And I both of them are different versions of me and I aggregate them and I get twice as much done in both halves of the day or work sessions. This works. It's good. And it's fun. So I'll just kind of fast forward here. You can read about the growth game I devised called Experimentos, which gets you comfortable with simply tossing out balls at the world just to see how they bounce back, to gaining learning without judgment. And then you iron out a modifiable protocol of daily inputs that result in your most sustainable, enjoyable, so enjoyable is kind, and productive edge days. This is the do what works in real life of you. Read about your daily arc here. So in the backdrop of this is all of this is the foundation for what the big thing you want to do. You want to start a business. You want to start a divorce. You want to climb a mountain. You want to become an athlete if you're not an athlete, or you want to become a musical artist if you're not a musical artist. You're getting something in motion. But all of these foundational pieces help you wrangle what you have, which is time and energy. It helps you turn that into a machine that will get your one goal going because you've fortified all of the elements of the foundation. And the elements in kindedge.com you can read about are the key foundational parts of Kindedge 360 is body, mind, soul, and systems.